listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants with hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, and Ben Lee.
Let's go Giants! SF Giants! Let's go Giants! SF Giants!
Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball history, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the National League All-Star Team. I'm Ben Lee, here is your host today, along with your other host, Chad King. Chad, good to see you as always.
Hello, Ben. They might have had a lot of players on the All-Star team, but only one played.
Well, as far as we're concerned, only one player played in the All-Star game, right? It's like, oh yeah, so there was 3 hours and one player played, and it was a really quiet game, you know.
It was like 4 pitches and a strikeout, and that was it. Oh, I saw Romo warm up in the pen, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it was, essentially 3 hours of Buster Posey coverage, just the way we like it, right?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Good for him.
So we are just coming off the week of the All-Star break, which obviously means that we've finally had a couple days of respite from what has been a very emotionally taxing Giant season, although not without its upsides, finally. Just sneaking them right in there at the end, which is really a nice little touch and a nice send-off. It's like, hey guys, so
20 games under 500.
Exactly. We've been torturing you all this time, much as we do, only not in the good way. But how about we just throw in a little 3-game winning streak and a no-hitter? How does that sound? Does that sound pretty good to you guys? Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Blue spherical objects, perhaps?
But it was pretty exciting. I actually was supposed to go to a Mariners game. I was in Seattle over the weekend, and I just wasn't feeling that well that day. And I said, you know what? I am going to stay home, and I'm just gonna sit here and have pizza and a calzone delivered to the hotel room. And I'm just going to watch the Giants game because I haven't gotten to actually sit down and watch a Giants game in a while either. You know, I'm usually at work or I'm busy and I was really glad that I picked that particular game. It's kind of weird to have like local TV on with like Felix Hernandez throwing a really nice game against the Angels. And then meanwhile on your phone, John Miller is blithely saying the word no-hitter because he doesn't believe in jinxes. And
nope.
I'm okay with that, mind you. Obviously it has worked for him a couple times in the last 5 years. So, but it was really exciting. I mean, that last couple of innings, I didn't know whether to like get up and run around or to like stay exactly where I was for fear of moving, or the baseball fans are a superstitious lot, and I was just like, oh, it's so close. What do I do? But
no, my wife was saying, "Don't say it's a no-hitter." I said, "Wait, I'm way more of a baseball fan than you are, and I'm saying no-hitter on Twitter. It's okay. It's okay."
They're saying it on the broadcast, and she's just like biting her nails and like, don't do it. Please just don't do it.
No, I told her that the TV coverage and the radio coverage are, they say no-hitter. ESPN says no-hitter. MLB.com says Tim Lincecum has a no-hitter through 7. It's out there, okay, to millions of people. My one little tweet to like 20 people is not going to change anything. It's okay.
Proper superstition says yes, it will. Because obviously if you get up and move off of the couch at this moment, then you are totally going to kill it for everybody.
Butterfly effect, right?
Right, I mean, because it's just all it takes is that one person. Yeah. Now, I mean, in all seriousness, though, it was great the way that fans online really took to it. You had... I love that MLB Jesus, who is a known San Francisco and Buster Posey fan, which I appreciate.
Giants fan. Mm-hmm.
Right, but MLB Jesus said, wherever you are, don't move. I was like, yes, the Lord hath spoken.
Think about the players on the field, because they had, of course, the superstition of not talking to him after, I don't know, whatever, the 5th or 6th inning. And he said, yeah, I must have smelled or something like that.
Right. That post-game interview was great. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, it seems like Nobody wanted to talk to you
Yeah,
there
no
at the
one
end.
talked to me.
So, yeah, I don't know, man. Just everybody kind of had other things to do. I don't know. Maybe I didn't.
Yeah, no, he totally played with it. It was great.
It was fun. You could see how loose he was even by the end of the game.
Oh, no, he was great. He wasn't like, yeah, no one wanted to talk to me. I don't know why. No, he totally went with it. But like, think if you were on the field, aside from not talking to him, it's like every little thing that you did might alter the course of the game. I mean, fans, we're sitting at home. Obviously, we can't affect the game. We're just thinking about like, oh, if I get up from the couch and get a beer or whatever, I might affect, through the butterfly effect. But like people at the game, players at the game are thinking like, well, if I get this cup of Gatorade, is he going to see me and then like go to the right instead of the left? And then that will affect how he's going to call the next pitch.
If I get tired, what happens if I make, I mean, and I always wonder how much of that, like, I figure because so much of that can't be controlled, I feel like after a certain point, players are just kind of like, there's certain things that I can't do here, like freak out. But, at the same time, like, you've got guys like Hunter Pence's catch there where he pretty much said, I knew what was happening, and you have to go for that.
Yeah.
And he did, and he got it, which was, he could have played that on a hop, but there was no way in hell a guy like Hunter Pence is going to play that on a hop when Tim Lincecum hasn't allowed a hit yet. And that he made one of the best catches that I've seen in, weeks from our guys. It was awesome.
No.
There were so many incredible moments around that whole game, though. It was just 13 strikeouts. That was that's even more than vintage Timmy. That's like vintage, 2010 and LDS Timmy.
Yeah, 148 pitches.
Well, that was just ridiculous in both good and bad ways. But
yeah, both ways. But you figure if you're gonna throw a no hitter, you might as well do it before the All-Star break, where you have extra rest.
Right, and
there were some people out there, very few.
Right.
I'm not going to accuse sabermetricians of saying, you should have pulled him after 100 pitches. No, not at all.
No, and there were a lot of it's a little biased. Obviously, my timeline has a lot of Giants fans in it, but even the ones who are have a vested interest in sabermetrics and have a lot of expertise in the area said, you know what? He's not pitching ineffectively. He still looks good.
Yeah.
And the All-Star break is coming up, and honestly, there is no reason to pull him from this game unless he makes a mistake. We are up by 9 runs. It just everything had lined up. Even people who normally would be like, maybe we shouldn't be, is like, it doesn't matter like it does in other contexts right now. There are so many mitigating factors, and frankly, the guy is pitching like his pants are on fire. Yeah. Now is not the time to be concerned with it. Although the higher it crept, you would definitely saw more people going, holy crap, how many pitches has he thrown? But he just, you could tell that he was getting a little bit gassed, but it never got to the point where it looked like he was going to really just start losing guys. A couple of ill-timed walks, but not like losing guys like that. He just looked on. That was really... I still talk about it like I just don't exactly know what happened. I'm just like, man, that was really a game, huh? That was something else.
Well, Timmy throwing a no-hitter, I would have expected a couple years ago, as most fans. But, this year, if you told me he was going to throw a no-hitter, I'd be like, no effing way. It's impossible.
Words to me. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane. But at the same time, when it got into the 7th inning, I was absolutely rooting for him to the point where I was nauseous.
Yeah.
I was like, I know something's going to happen where it's going to be a bloop, or an infield single or a bunt single. Something's going to happen.
You just have that sinking feeling. Yeah.
Damn it. And he just motored through it, even after 2 walks in the 6th inning. The ground ball to Panda, he went into foul territory, threw across the diamond. Hunter Pence's diving catch. Most no-hitters in perfect games require at least 1 or 2 of those kind of plays. And, it was complete with that. And so it was a team effort, no doubt. Timmy, if he's a Giant no longer after this year, he's going to remember this, and we're all going to remember this.
Sure.
After this year. A lot of people are equating his potential departure to Joe Montana. Now, granted, he won 4 Super Bowls, and Timmy's only won 2 World Series, but that was back in the day where Super Bowls were a little bit easier to win than World Series are today.
The playing field was a little bit narrower at the time.
Exactly. I mean, today you have to, not only get into the playoffs, but then you have to win through 3 tiers. It's different.
You got 31 other teams that you got to get past. I mean, but I would say though that a lot of people have really argued in the case of Tim that part of the reason that there's such a big just feeling around this one is that Tim has not been good, and because we just haven't seen good Lincecum in a couple of years, the fact that he came in and he did this in such spectacular fashion is almost even more endearing. He's turned himself from being that domination story into that underdog story. His career is sort of on this arc, and maybe this is a point that helps determine where that goes. Not immediately, but at some point within the next half a year, maybe this is where we hit the stereotypical transition from thrower to pitcher, because he's always been, limber with that slingshot of an arm. But if nothing else, this is one of those moments that just makes you an iconic Giants story. I mean, the Giants love their guys like that, and they've always rooted, fans have always rooted for Lincecum because of what he's represented and the way in which he came on the scene and the timing of which, what he helped lead the Giants to or contribute to, and it's I think it's because of that, just like a lot of people online have said, that's why it's such a big deal.
Well, we have so many examples like Mariano Rivera, who doesn't throw more than 92 miles an hour, just like Lincecum, but he's got the cutter and the slider and the change. He knows how to pitch.
Well, with Mariano, it's really the cutter and the cutter and the cutter in a lot of cases. But
yeah, 90% of the time.
Right,
but what I noticed of Lincecum during his no-hitter, he threw the curveball and the change more often than I'm used to. I mean, he still had the fastball 40% of the time.
Sure.
But his previous starts, he's like 50 to 55% of the time. So he clearly was mixing it up a little bit more, and Posey was calling the pitches. Of course, there's the whole subtext of, Lincecum and Posey not getting along, blah, blah, blah. No one still knows about that whole thing. But the reality is they did great together. And, Posey giving him that bear hug, that blindsided bear hug at the end, it just, I don't know, there's something so special about that. Even though the Giants are 8 games under 500 right now, I felt like they had won the West or something. It was a really good feeling just watching that game.
I may have saved a clip of that as a GIF on my phone.
Yeah, exactly.
To Giants fan friends.
Buster hugs, right?
Buster hugs.
Buster hugs.
Oh, yeah. Those are a thing, and they should be a thing.
They should be a thing. Every time you do something cool, you should get a Buster hug.
But like
you should have
spectacularly cool.
Some guy in like catcher's gear come up randomly and just blindside you and just hug you. And you'd be like, "Oh, that's so cool. Thanks." Yeah.
Oh man, I just got hugged, and that was awesome. And
that was totally awesome.
It's
even though
then you know it.
Even though my back is totally contorted and my C4 is out of whack, but other than that, I'm great.
Didn't need it. I just did something awesome. We're done with that. Not going to need the C4 for a while. It's all right.
No problem.
NBD. So, moving from hitless games to games of much hitting, we did also see a pretty spectacular home run derby. Obviously, we're going to get back to the Giants and their struggles, but let's talk some cool stuff first. And that home run derby, man, that was something else. I mean, obviously, it's always fun to see Prince Fielder hit these ridiculously long monster home runs, whether or not I like Prince Fielder, which, since he became a Tiger, I have my debates on that. Ooh. But, I mean, Bryce Harper and Yoenis Cespedes in the finals. Bryce hit some long ones, and I was pretty solidly impressed by those. But the funniest part was when ESPN suddenly decided that he had hit it 571 feet.
Yeah, that was good, right?
And it was like, oh wait, 471 typo. I'm like, okay,
yeah, good old tracker.
A little worried there, but Cespedes came in, and you just knew, 2 home runs in, you just went, no, you're done, Harper. There is no way.
Yeah, when Cespedes was named for the home run derby, 2 or 3 days before the derby, I'm not an A's fan, obviously, but we all follow the A's in the Bay Area more so than the national media. And I was like, oh, yeah, he's going to win that.
Yeah.
I didn't tweet that out. So, yes, okay. Accuse me from saying this, after the fact. But he's just he reminds me of Frank Thomas. He's just huge.
He's huge, but he's that all-around player, which, like younger Frank Thomas.
Yeah, exactly. And he just, I don't know, he doesn't remind me of like an Adam Dunn or something like that. He has the consistency and the power to win something like the home run derby. So once they named him, I said, oh yeah, he's going to win it.
Well, he's got that athleticism, and just if anytime that you've seen Cespedes in batting practice, the guy puts on a show.
Well, a lot
so
of players
Harper,
like Jeter and others are like, oh yeah, I like to go watch him for Mario and Rivera. I like to watch him for BP, and he just absolutely. What was it, like 18 home runs or 16 home runs?
In the first round,
17,
6 in the second round, and 9 in the final for a total of 32.
He didn't need it. He didn't even need to hit in the second round. He just did it for the fans.
Pretty much.
He was already in the finals.
Yeah, no one was going to be able to get past him.
No one
at
matched
that point.
even 17.
No,
he was the last one, and
he said, "Okay, sure, I'll do it anyway."
He's like, "Yeah, I'll hit some." So he hit 6.
So he hit 6.
Like, whatever,
for fun.
Yeah, for fun. And then of course Bryce Harper, he hit a ton.
Harper has a ton of power, but it just isn't the same. He didn't have that free swing look to him, although he crushed some. Credit where it's due. Like some years, the final comes down to like 4 or 5 home runs tops, if that, because these guys have done so. And Harper hits 8 in that first round, and he knew it wasn't going to be enough.
No, I'm glad though
that but
a few years ago they switched the format to where the first round totals carry over to the second round.
Right.
Because there's been so many years in years past where some guy went off with like Cespedes with like 17 home runs in the first round. Okay, so they advanced to the second round. But
and
then
it doesn't count.
Wiped clean,
right.
Even though some guy you're battling against hit like 6
or like 4.
Yeah, and then
you end up like Matt Kemp and you hit 0.
And then you're cut off. So I think that's a fantastic, addition to the home run derby.
Mm-hmm.
And then the finals.
I kind of appreciate that the finals start at 0 by the same token, because if once it's just 2 guys in a swing off, you don't really want the previous total to match in.
You don't want previous total at that point. You just want to swing off. So I think it's a good format. But Frank Thomas, I remember him hitting the Will Clark sign at Pittsburgh. That's what Cespedes reminded me of. He just my God, his bat speed. Just incredible.
Put a crack in what should have been an untouchable truck in center field. No big.
Yeah, it was hit twice, right?
Yeah, it's not the first time that I got hit, but Cespedes just cracked the windshield apparently. That's impressive.
Yeah, no, he was good. So good for the A's, good for the American League.
What's funny is my coworker Anthony, who we bring up every so often, diehard Phillies fan, really bright baseball guy.
Yeah.
I went up to him before the Derby started and I said, "Hey, who's your pick for the Derby?" And he thinks about it. And remember, Phillies fan, so think of the guys that he's seen most often. He goes, "I'm gonna pick Bryce Harper." And I said, "Okay." Mm-hmm. And obviously, I'm from out here, and you see this guy all the time. I said, "I got to pick Yoenis Cespedes."
Yeah.
So who makes the finals?
Yeah. No.
And I was just like,
picks.
Good baseball IQ, man. But we were watching it in our break room because we both happened to have a break during the final round, which was perfect. So we're watching Yoenis Cespedes go off, and he's just like freaking out and like punching me in the arm. And we're just like screaming at, just watching it on my iPhone. We're screaming at it, and I'm like falling all over the table because Cespedes is just hitting these monster runs, and it doesn't look like he's putting anything into it. He's just like, "Oh, that's cool." Whomp. It's like it was like watching Robbie Cano in 2011, but more. Like Cano looked like he could have just kept going for hours on end, and Cespedes just looked like "Oh, what? I got 5 more outs. I can probably hit another 15 in that time. That's cool." That was insane, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it was way more fun to watch than the All-Star game.
Yeah, about that. Well, and even not speaking as Giants fans, because obviously as Giants fans, it's nice to see our guy get in, and Posey did a pretty good job catching Chapman, because Chapman uncorked a couple of Whoops.
101s, yeah.
Yeah, and Posey handled those pretty. I mean, he's had to handle younger Lincecum a little bit, so he's dealt with like fast with quick movement. But other than Posey getting into the game, even ignoring that we're Giants fans and want to see our guys get in, there just not a lot happened. That was a stacked AL lineup, and it just didn't do a whole lot. It was kind of a stacked NL lineup, and it just really didn't do a lot at all.
Oh.
So really all the stories became pretty much Prince Fielder legged out a triple, and Matt Harvey plunked Robbie Cano in the leg by accident.
Yeah, no, there were no mistakes made. It just, couple hits here, couple hits there for the American League.
And I mean, no mistakes, but also like no fireworks, no.
Like the biggest controversy of the game was Leland putting in Rivera in the 8th instead of the 9th. That was it.
And that's, I mean, if you're doing it as a trying to win move, that's one thing. But I mean, he's Mariano Rivera, and you're up 3 runs. You put him in the 9th, he's going to get a save out of it. He's going to get a save out of it.
Yeah, no, it was really weird because like they had the pregame rally, if you will, and Torrey Hunter was like, "We're gonna win this. Let's get us all. We're gonna hand it over to Mo. We're gonna do this." And then Rivera came up and said, "I'll be honored if you get this to me to the 9th so I can save it. I'd love it."
And he
you guys
got
mean to me.
8th. It was weird.
So then it's 3-0 in the 8th, and
Jim Leland gives
it to Rivera in the 8th instead of Nathan
in New York.
Yeah, he was really
decision.
gracious, because when they interviewed him, they said, "So, are you upset that you pitched the 8th?" And he's like, "No, because if I didn't pitch the 8th, you never know what would have happened.
Yeah.
And if the game was tied or they went ahead, then I wouldn't have pitched the 9th." And it's like, good PR job there.
I was gonna say, I mean, Rivera has been nothing but gracious this entire. He's Mo Rivera.
No, he was like, "Oh, it's so smart."
Just on this whole goodbye tour.
Well, okay, by that same logic, then you should always pitch the 8th for the Yankees. It's like,
we're gonna go with no.
No, that's.
I mean,
no.
Well, yeah, there are statistical reasons to
Oh, of course,
but realistically, no.
No, it was really weird. So I mean, he had a great moment, and it was pretty special. I hate the Yankees, but I cannot have any hate for Rivera. He is a class act, and he was brought to tears as he came out on the mound in the 8th inning there, and he was named MVP only because no one did anything spectacular.
I mean, he had a pretty solid 8th inning, in fairness.
Yeah, and so did 5 other pitchers for the American League that retired 1, 2, 3 innings, but apparently, they said, oh, by default, because he's the 43-year-old and he's retiring, let's give it the MVP to him. So
in fairness,
that's what
given
happened.
that nobody did anything else and he's Mo Rivera and it's the All-Star game, the All-Star game is.
I'm not saying I had a problem with it. I'm just saying that literally,
but we see how you got there.
Played like 100 games like this, there'd be like 2. He could be the MVP for just having a 1, 2, 3, 8th inning.
Right.
I mean, most All-Star games there's going to be, this guy was 2 for 3 with 3 RBI. Oh, he's the MVP.
Right, or you're going to have Melky last year.
Yeah, or Melky. Let's not talk about that.
We hate bringing it up, but that's one of those cases where you see a guy reach out and grab MVP, and in this one, Mo, I would say it's one of those ones where you say Mo earned it by being Mo Rivera the rest of his career. And he absolutely deserved it, especially in that context. Like you said, nobody really did a lot to take it away from him.
No one did anything.
And I think if everybody had looked at it,
problem with it.
If you had looked at all the people that got into the game beforehand, like if you had known only those people would get into the game, and you said, now imagine that nothing happened, you'd go, okay, so Mo Rivera. Like I probably would have said that too. You're in New York, he's hitting the end of his career, and none of those other guys on there are bigger names right now as far as recognition for what they're doing and what they have done. You're going to give it to Mo Rivera. But then he came in, didn't make himself look bad, went through being absolutely beloved by the fans, yeah, you give it to him, and you should.
Yeah.
So, with that said, we've now managed to talk an awful lot about an All-Star game in which nothing happened. We may have talked more than the parts that actually mattered to us.
That's okay. All right, so injury report so far. We have Hector Sanchez on July 9th with a strained right shoulder on the 15-day DL. Joaquin Arias on July 8th, appendicitis on the 15-day DL. And Andres Torres, day-to-day. Of course, he's played a little bit. Before that, we really don't have anything else except for, of course, Pagan and Vogelsong and Casilla coming back. So
it is worth pointing out, Eric Surkamp is back and had a birthday recently. Good for him.
Yes, he did.
And a lot of the guys that we were missing at the beginning of the year, Surkamp, Abreu. Pill got hurt briefly, but we had no reason to go to Pill for a while. But yeah, pretty much other than that, now that we've got Casilla back, and it's really just you've got Scudero day to day. Crawford is, I think, probably up back. It's safe to say Crawford's back up to playing level, and Chad Gaudin's biggest problem at this point is not his injury.
Ooh, no, it's the whole.
Chad Gaudin's biggest problem still.
He likes to cruise hospitals. Yeah.
So let's talk about something else. But yeah, we're getting back to a point where the Giants are healthier. They're getting a lot of their guys back. It's not going to be too long until we see Vogelsong again as well, which is going to be great. We may even get Eric Surkamp back at some point soon, which could be a bit of a boon, especially looking at how bleak the starting rotation has kind of been on and off, although they are starting to pick it up. Maybe can we bring Eric Surkamp in as a long reliever that pitches on road games instead of Zito, maybe?
Why not?
At this point, that'd be great. But injury-wise, we can finally say, this is starting to look a little bit more like the team that we thought we had at the beginning of the year, that we had for a lot of the beginning of the year, to be honest, until May hit, and that was really when Vogelsong went down. Was I think when we started seeing a lot of trouble start hitting, and we're starting to get some of those guys back. Hard to know when Angel Pagan will be back, but we've I think seen some pretty solid work, surprisingly solid work out of Tanaka, pretty solid work out of Blanco, Andres Torres, anyway, and then Hunter Pence. So we've had I don't know, we're getting back to where the team was at the beginning of the year, roster wise, with a couple surprises, obviously. Kensuke Tanaka being one of those. But yeah, as there's reason to at least feel like, if nothing else, we're getting more of a whole team back together, and if nothing else, that's a nice position to be in coming out of the All-Star break.
All right, so obviously the Giants are 8 games under 500, and I don't think...
Thanks, Chad. You wet blanket.
Damn it. Okay, you take the rest
We
of the
spent
podcast.
all this time talking about a no-hitter, and now you got to come in and remind us that we're 8 games under 500.
Nolan Ryan had 7
class.
no-hitters.
No
and
class.
He had some of those for losing teams. It happens, okay? It just does.
Right,
so
Jonathan
get over
Sanchez
it.
in 2009.
There you go. Besides that...
Besides that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Boom, head blown.
No, that was a totally inappropriate thing to say, sir.
I know, 150 years later.
Too soon.
Too soon.
All right.
We're talking geologic time, of course.
Well, if we're going to talk about disappointments, let's go right into talking about the Giants' disappointments.
Yes.
And I think there's some pretty obvious ones. You noted a couple in here, so have at, sir. Have at.
So, at the beginning of this year, we were talking about, we're going to win 3 championships in 4 years. At least we're going to make the playoffs. There's no doubt. If their pitching was a little bit better after the first month, they would be 10 games up. We were really high on this team at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. Now we find ourselves in 4th place, 6.5 games back, which is not insurmountable, but
it ain't great either.
Very, very, very unexpected. And the reaction is, what is your biggest first half disappointment? And for me, I listed a few things. First of all, the starting pitching. Obviously, it's been a little bit better over the last month or so.
Sure.
Ironically,
the last couple weeks.
As they had their worst slide, but they are 13th out of 15 in ERA. I mean, we're talking about the Giants here. They're
right.
typically in the top
specifically
4 or
in
5.
July?
Well, I do have specific July stats
July,
here,
or is this more like as of July?
But as of July, yes.
Okay. So that's including some of the. I mean, we knew going in that the starting pitching was rough in the beginning of the year. Even when we were picking them up all the time, they were going in maybe 4 or 5 innings into games on a regular basis. We were using the heck out of the bullpen. So that's not incredibly surprising, but sort of realizing that there are only 2 teams that are worse than us at this point in ERA, it's simultaneously surprising and not surprising at the same time, if that makes any sense.
No.
You're just like, wow, really? There's only 2 teams worse than us? And then you stop for a second and you go, wow, there's 2 teams worse than us? How'd that happen?
Well, most of our payroll is tied up in pitching, and we are at the bottom of the league. So it's not a good return on investment this year. But number 2, I would say Panda. I know a lot of people make fun of his weight. He's proven that he can perform at a high level, at a high weight. But this year, apparently, he can't. And he has no hamate bones to give up.
We're out of hamates.
But at the same time, I can't imagine anyone saying, if you were lighter by 25 pounds, you would be a worse player. I of course not. I don't buy that.
No.
So
I mean, Sandoval's always going to have a lot of muscle, but that's not the issue at this point, I think.
No.
It's when he has a little more mobility, it makes him certainly more effective. But, looking at it at this point, it ain't great. His numbers as of right now are definitely resembling 2010 Panda, and that was certainly not our favorite edition of Panda.
No.
His slugging is at 397, which would be the lowest slugging that he has ever posted if he were to continue at this exact pace, by about 12 points. But I don't know, man. I'm not sure what exactly I don't know that there is a solution here. I mean, for him to, take his conditioning seriously and lose weight is certainly one thing, and the Giants have tried a number of ways to get him to do that.
Yeah, it's not trade him and put in Brett Pill. That's
right. No. That is not it. Well, one, I don't ever want to see Brett Pill at third base.
No.
You say that. I certainly also don't want to see Joaquin Arias as a starter at third base. I'm just going to take a pass on that.
Why do people hate Belt so much?
Narrative plus it's easy plus, I think we just get into this weird series of roller coasters with Belt where when he does something good, we're just like, this guy is the best thing since sliced bread. Why do we ever dislike him? And then when he does something bad, we're like, this guy is the worst. He's just never going to be a consistent player. Why do we even keep him? When realistically, we should be looking at Belt, I think, in a similar, not the same, obviously, as far as history, but in a similar way that we look at JT Snow nowadays.
Yeah.
Popular player, very well liked, extremely slick fielder, who will frequently, but not always consistently, have moments at the plate. I mean, obviously, for all that we say about Snow being an awesome fielder and a great guy, he's had some batting moments that we're going to remember forever, and so has Belt, who has got a ton of pop when he's able to get into one. But we kind of overhyped him, and he's also incredibly likable. When you put those two things together, you just get a lot of engagement emotionally about Belt, I think. And when people find, it's almost something similar with, it's really not the same with Lincecum. I shouldn't say that. Lincecum has sort of earned this permanent state of affection because he was so good for the first couple of years he was up. But with Belt, it's just strange. Like, we expected him to be the next, I don't know, Will Clark. I mean, we almost expect him to be the next Buster Posey in a way because he was hyped as this young, extremely talented, very powerful first baseman that was going to come up and make an immediate impact more than anything else, who fought his way onto the club out of spring training and then you look at what we got out of that, and it's like, well, maybe we set him up for trouble right off the bat.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for him because we, as fans, probably put the bar a little too high for him. So,
and not even like insurmountably high, although, you know, he can get a little streaky, and he definitely did not. He started off kind of rough, but I would say with Belt, you know, at the same time, it was still higher than we should be expecting from him, and that's been the hardest thing, I think, for us as fans to kind of come to terms with. Because I love Belt. He's delightfully awkward. He's
yeah, I do too.
Well, I wouldn't. He's not at all well spoken, and that's the best thing about him. But as you know, it's so difficult to separate. Oh man, I like Olive Garden and all, but it's so hard to separate likable personality Belt from, you know, inconsistent but valuable player Belt.
Yeah.
And that the inability to separate those two things means that sometimes you love Belt and sometimes you're incredibly frustrated with Belt, and it's almost like there's no in between. It's really interesting to watch. Trish does listen to the show sometimes, doesn't she?
No, she never listens. It's all good.
Shame on you, sir. No, I'm kidding. But realistically, you know, it's a strange thing, though, because you don't see that with a lot of other players. Other than, I think at this point, you're starting to see it a little bit with Pablo Sandoval, but it's not the same. Belt just inspires these dramatic, visceral reactions from everybody in both directions, sometimes at the same time.
I'm still confused by, the polarization that we see. I don't understand it.
I totally do. Though, and because he has a way about him that makes him incredibly likable, and he's just this guy that Giants fans either will identify with or they learn to like, and they get this emotional engagement about him. And when you get that kind of buy-in, then your opinion starts being affected by the way the guy's doing on the field. And people who started off by liking Belt, they get really, really rabid about the way they like Belt, and justifiably so, because when he is on, he is one of the most valuable guys in the lineup.
He is.
When he is off, sometimes it's that we're not giving him enough credit because we expect these big things from him, and so he'll be doing decently well, and we'll just act like there's nothing going on. And sometimes he is a black hole in the lineup. And what I think you're finding then is that the people who don't approve of him, either as a reaction to the ones who will sing his praises, or just because they're incredibly frustrated watching this over and over, when he does hit one of his slumps, they'll just go off on him. And it's it's really interesting to watch, because he's this polarizing figure without being a polarizing figure. You know, the guy's not Yordani Valdespin. He's not throwing tantrums in the dugout. He's not Niger Morgan. He doesn't have this strange, like, you should like him or you hate him. Like, but he inspires a reaction kind of like that. Just this visceral, like, get rid of him versus, like, why aren't we re-signing him to an extension? It's pretty crazy to watch. Even just following the Lowell KNBR Callers account, you just see this huge range of crazy opinions on Belt, and you can tell everybody just has a really strong opinion about poor BB9.
Oh, Mr. Giraffe. Yay. All
right, so let's I'm going to go ahead and skip my contribution to first half disappointment, because we're going to come back to this a little later. And let's go ahead and let's ask the question that comes out of this. So, what can the Giants do, Mr. King, Professor King of baseball analytics?
Of course.
What can the Giants do to turn this around? We're 6.5 games out. The Diamondbacks are slowing down a little bit. The Dodgers are speeding up a little bit. I hate saying that. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
I know. It's like bile.
Oof. But what can the Giants do to turn this around? You know, obviously we're not mathematically out of it. So what next?
All right. So the Giants are in July, which we're halfway through the month. They are 13th in hitting and 13th in pitching. So, for June, people were saying, "Oh, our pitching's so much better, but our hitting sucks." Well, no. In July, both suck. Just plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
Statistics.
Which is always funny when you can say that right after a no-hitter. But overall,
yeah, well,
barring
right
certain games that I'm going to be really happy about for the rest of my life,
right?
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do? It really comes down to their pitching. That's how they won their first two their first two? No.
That's how they won the most recent two.
The
first two in San Francisco history.
World Series is pitching. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the fact is, it's broken right now. Mm-hmm. So the Giants really need to focus on repairing their pitching. And Kane is not Kane right now. He needs to turn around. Lincecum.
There's that question, is he hurt or what's going on with him? And the Giants I think they owe it to their postseason chances to at least look into that.
Yeah.
And certainly owe it to Kane's ongoing health to at least make sure everything's okay with him. But you can't do it unless the guy's going to speak up.
Yeah.
And Kane's always going to be a hard worker. It's this weird dynamic that either it's going to resolve itself or we're going to look back at this season saying, well, what if? I wish that they had done this. I wish that he had done this. I wish that. And I think that's going to be a rough situation because Kane has not looked great, certainly not consistently looked great at all this season.
Well, a year ago, he started the All-Star game.
True.
I mean...
That's such a volatile thing, though. I mean...
It's amazing. And this year he's not even close to even being considered to be on the team. I mean, just 1 year. Boom.
It would have been name recognition alone. He has had some absolutely rough games.
Oh, just horrendous games.
Yeah, I mean, being removed in the first inning really qualifies as horrendous. I will go ahead and admit that.
Yeah, his shortest outing ever. Mad Bum has been fine. He was, on the team. Vogie is out, but he was horrible before he went on the DL. Godin has been good in his replacement, so I think that's a key when he comes back in August. If he can shoulder
give us some interesting
3
options.
or 4 wins,
mm-hmm.
That's going to be pretty good. It's like picking up a free agent. So, Timmy, look what we saw right before the All-Star break.
A couple of starts, too. I mean, the start against the Mets was pretty similar. We just couldn't pick him up.
He had 10 Ks in 7 innings. He is just statistically, he's there. He's there. He is not throwing 97 miles an hour. He's throwing 90, but he's
finding
beginning
success with it.
To, it seems like he's trying. He's trying like I'm trying to tell him, you're trying to strike out people. No, he is appearing as though he's becoming a pitcher and not a thrower. And I know that sounds stupid, and these guys know way more than we do. But at the same time, statistically speaking, we see this from the 10,000-foot view. He is starting to pitch like a pitcher, not a thrower.
Right. He's certainly mixing in off speed differently than he did before. We definitely saw that changeup pickup in a way that we just didn't see, last year.
No,
certainly not in the last few starts. And you're seeing some interesting results coming out of that. I mean, it's been against teams that have wretched offenses, but you start somewhere. And the Mets and the Padres are a good place to be able to say, well, he's capable of this kind of movement that we are seeing. And I mean, some of that stuff has looked nasty. That tells us a lot to start, that he's getting, movement back on his pitches, that he's usually locating the strike zone again. I mean, it's a start.
He had 29 swing throughs.
Yeah, that was insane.
That tied a major league record with Randy Johnson in his last no-hitter. I mean, 29 swing throughs, despite the fact that he had 148 pitches, despite the fact that he had 4 walks. That is incredible. That means you're fooling people more than anyone can be fooled.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, there's the running jokes about the Padres, but I mean, we're not talking like young, inexperienced Astros lineup here.
The Padres were one game out of first place just
Right.
like 4 weeks ago.
And I mean, there are guys who are not necessarily going to be, Hall of Famer batters, but they're solid. I mean, I wouldn't bet against Carlos Quentin getting a couple of decent hits off of a guy. He can. It's one of those things where it's like, on the one hand, we keep joking that it's the Padres and that, well, he's going to have to, do it against a decent team but for all the joking, like, even if we would have looked at the beginning of the season and said, these Padres are not going to make the postseason, they've done decently enough, and they're still major league batters. And Lincecum was not fooling any of those guys earlier in the season.
No.
And that so far looks like it's starting to change. So you got to start somewhere, and if the somewhere where you start is, mixing in the curveball a little more and getting some movement and throwing a no-hitter right before the All-Star break, then I'll take it. So hitter-wise, and let's just race through this before we talk about a couple other things, including some questions we asked to our followers on Twitter and Facebook.
Yes.
Hitting-wise, what are we missing as a team besides everyone?
Hits with runners in scoring position for sure.
Okay. That's got to be it. I think we're looking for Posey to sustain what he's doing. You can't become National League Player of the Week on a team that goes 1-6 without really doing something right. So I think Posey's got to maintain it. But I think we've got to see somebody else pick it up. And offhand, my first guess would be Hunter Pence or Marco Scudero that we're going to see kind of pick it up first. But, we've been seeing surprising offense coming, like, it'll for maybe a game or two, but it'll come from Kensuke Tanaka, and then it'll come from Blanco for a game or two, and then he'll just sort of go dormant. And then Brandon Crawford will be, beginning of season Brandon Crawford. That stuff all has to start getting strung together a little bit, but Posey, I think, is going to be the nucleus of that. If he maintains what he's doing and goes on the kind of tear he tends to in the second half, this team's going to have to build around that, and I think that's going to kind of be the defining whether or not they make it out of this season.
Yeah, well, Posey right now is hitting 325. Last year...
That's pretty respectable.
No, it's great. At the break last year, where he was the starter, he was 289. So if he wants to match last year's MVP numbers, he has to hit 350. I think it's 356, 11 home runs, and 43 RBI for the second half, and that's totally attainable for this guy. Even if the average,
which is funny because how many players would you say, yeah, he can totally do that?
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of them.
No, and his numbers were so much worse last year at the All-Star break. But last year he hit 385 in the second half.
He went on a tear in the second half. And Posey, I think, I don't have it handy. I want to say historically Posey has always been a little stronger in the second half.
Yeah.
He just tends to get going. He's at, But
well,
yeah,
I think what's amazing is that last year he was in the conversation for MVP at the half.
Batting
this year,
289.
Yeah, exactly. This year he has a better average, more home runs, more RBI, and he is non-existent in the MVP conversation.
Because
and yet,
the team is doing so poorly, though.
Exactly.
That's the thing
yet
about
to
MVP.
match his numbers from last year, granted, 353 is a very large number to hit,
Sure.
but he hit 385 last year in the second half.
By underachieving in comparison to his last year's second half, he would do better.
Yeah. And then he only has to hit 11 home runs and 43 RBI to match the other two stats. I don't see
now let's get
those
guys
two
on
stats
base.
being a problem. Those two stats, I think he's going to actually blow away. Average, he may not hit 336 or whatever it was last year. He still may hit 300, 310, 320, whatever. But I think the power numbers are going to be higher. But the sad thing is, unless the Giants actually win the West, he has no
Nobody's
chance
gonna
at the
notice.
MVP. No.
Certainly not likely. I mean, unless the Giants at least can make it close by the end, no one's going to be watching them. And obviously, we've seen Posey get some recognition even when he's not being watched because he's got. At this point, he has that kind of name recognition where people look at the Giants and they say, "Oh yeah, that's It used to be, oh yeah, that's Tim Lincecum's team," and at this point, I think it's, "Oh yeah, that's Buster Posey's team."
Yeah.
And that's going to help him, but it's not going to get him into the MVP conversation.
No.
Just like the running joke about, the best way to win a Gold Glove is to hit. It's the best way to be an MVP is to be on a team that makes you look valuable.
Sad,
but
too.
let's face it though, he's been doing well and he is absolutely a bright spot this season. And he is also the only Giant that made it into the All-Star game. So
Yeah.
let's jump into our armchair manager discussion here.
Struck out.
Well, about that, you just spoiled it for everybody.
Damn it.
But we mentioned this earlier, so we'll just touch on this briefly. Was it okay that Bochy only used 1 out of 4 Giants in the All-Star game? I mean, Scudero's got mallet finger, so I'm going to give him a pass on that.
Yep.
Romo got warmed up in the pen, which says that Bochy was willing to use him even if he wasn't going to force him into the game. Bumgarner, Bumgarner would have liked to get in, but it sounded like he already had an idea that Bochy was going to hold him for long relief because he knows his guys. But at the same time, is it okay that only 1 out of the 4 Giants got in? Are we kind of okay with them just being recognized? What do you think? Does it affect the game if we change when or who comes into that game?
No. It didn't affect the game. Most managers will choose 1 or 2 extra guys from their own team
Sure.
during the year, kind of like a reward, if you will. I mean, we've seen this happen before in both years that the Giants won the World Series in the following year.
Right.
You know,
And we saw it
2
with,
years ago, the Giants had 7 or 8 guys on the team,
Sure,
which
and
was insane.
we've seen every team do it. We saw Charlie Manuel do it a few years
Oh
back
my
when
God,
he was
with the Phillies. Yeah, It
I
was
mean that
insane.
was a whole thing, and then all of a sudden we got our chance, so we went, okay, well, yeah, now we get it. But
Yeah. Now we understand why that happens. I mean, this year there was a huge backlash against, Scudero, being on the team. It's like, well, why isn't this guy on the team? And the same with Sergio Romo being named at the end. But the reality is, Bochy's very honest. He says, these guys helped us last year.
and
Here's my little...
Scudero had a second half that easily could have been All-Star worthy, except that the All-Star game happens in the first half.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's
So-
what he's saying. He's like, yeah, this is partially a word for last year, so go fuck yourself. Oh, I just said a bad word.
There
on
goes the clean
podcast.
tag that doesn't exist
There
here.
it goes. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't exist.
But yeah,
no.
I would agree though. There are guys that I think have been having surprisingly good seasons that could have easily made the team as well. But that's always the case, and it's just sort of an acknowledged thing. Even when it happened, and we all said no, Pablo Sandoval should have made the All-Star team, and Charlie Manuel brought on his guys instead. We all just kind of said, well, you know what though, Phillies win the World Series, Charlie Manuel gets to pick who goes on there.
Yep.
And we're not going to be happy about it, but we're going to deal with it eventually. And I think the same thing is going to be true with Scudero, but I kind of see where people are coming from. I mean, it's it's one of those things where in the end, you just end up kind of frustrated with the entire All-Star game process.
Yeah.
But it's at the same time, because it's built out of so many compromises and reactionary things, it's never going to change. More than a little
Bob
at a time.
Costas on the MLB network credited another writer. I don't know his name, so we'll have to look that up. But he said he was a proponent of a special category that would only be used by the commissioner in
Right.
special circumstances.
Right.
For example, this year.
Oh, this is the one about Yasiel Puig, right?
Exactly.
I remember reading this, and I wish I could remember who wrote
Out
it.
of the 40-man roster or whatever.
Mhm.
They've expanded it since the horrible tie in Milwaukee several years back. But he said this would be a great
I think
position.
It was
that-
Jason Stark. That's who it was.
Was it Stark? I don't
think it was.
He credited someone else. It wasn't Stark. It was like some
Oh
Detroit
no, it
writer
wasn't. It
or
wasn't.
something.
That's completely wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't Stark. But anyway, he said it would be a great wild card for the commissioner to pull when he needed to pull it. For example, this year. Obviously, a lot of people wanted to see Yasiel Puig. I don't, but a lot of other people did. So shoot me for not wanting to see him. But the point is that not every year this would be called upon. But it's kind of like the ace up the sleeve. It's the wild card. It's I'm going to throw a red flag. I want this guy on my team, and no one else can tell me that I can't. And it's an extra slot. It would add one more person to the roster. It wouldn't replace anyone. But the fact of the matter is it could be used for someone like... Yeah.
It could be in the All-Star game, you're just like, yeah, there's going to be more people. I mean, how many All-Stars were there in, like, 2011 when a bunch of guys got hurt? You ended up with, like, 83. And it's like, well... Yeah.
It was stupid, right? I mean, it's like...
in a way, it was. At the same time,
All-Star team.
You just kind of had to kind of just go, all right, well...
Yeah, like so Jeff Van Keur, right? You know, he needed to be replaced this year after he won the fifth-man vote. And then he's announced, as well as his replacement for the All-Star team. So it's like, okay, well, how many are actually All-Stars? Yeah, like, it should be like 25 people. No, it's 30 people. Oh, wait, no, it's 40 people. Oh, wait, no, it's 50 people.
Some of it becomes tactical, too, because now you've got guys who can, they can name who they think they want or need onto the roster. And I think that changes a little bit, too. Once in a while, you'll get like a reliever who's not a closer. And on the one hand, they're good, so it's nice that they're getting recognized. And on the other hand, like the way that the media like lionizes these closers does it make any sense to have one of them in? When the year that we had Drew Storen and Tyler Clippard make it in 2011.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where you're like, but one of them's not even but does that matter?
Doesn't
Maybe not.
matter.
They're both really dominant, but at the same time, it was just weird thing. And it's this weird, like, because now, quote unquote, it matters. There's a tactical advantage to choosing your own guys. And okay, I think we've totally run off the topic of Bochy using 1 out of 4 Giants in the All-Star game. So let's just assume that it was the right decision, and that Scudero is going to heal up for not having done that, and that we're going to get a more effective second baseman with a finger that works sometime soon. I'm actually going to jump straight into the Tweet at Me Bro section.
Sure.
Because we had some really, really interesting stuff here. And I'm actually going to kind of hold off on discussing some of these because I think we've had some really good points come in. One of the first things that you asked was, just for baseballs and giggles, do you think that the Giants... I know, I like that. Do you think the Giants should consider trading Timmy? If so, to whom and for whom or what? I will point out, we have an interview coming out with Wendy Thurm shortly that I actually did right before... the Giants went on a 3-game winning streak. So it's going to be an interesting, certainly right before Tim Lincecum's no-hitter. So that is going to be in a slightly different perspective.
Her again.
Indeed. And we did actually talk about this a little bit and just sort of the trade-off between value of Tim Lincecum to fans and value of Tim Lincecum as a trade chip right now, pre-no-hitter. But some of the responses you got, we got at East Stan Sal, who said no, trading him would be a bad idea. And I think a lot of fans are going to agree with that, especially right now after the no-hitter. Everyone loves Tim Lincecum, and I think that there's going to be this sense that trading Lincecum is like throwing in the towel, even if that's not entirely true. SF Giants fan 57 said no, after everything he's done, let him have his remaining 13 starts as a Giant. Certainly understand that. And our buddy Eric Nathanson at 2 Out Hits said, even if they wanted to trade him, I think buyers will beware until we all see how Timmy bounces back from 148 pitches. And there is time for that before the end of the trade deadline. So I think that will be interesting to see as well. If you want to take the next one here, it was also a really interesting one.
Yeah, so Vogelsong, of course, went down with his injury, and he's slated to come back in August. So we asked, do you think a healed Vogelsong will help in August? And, of course, Eric Nathanson at 2 Out Hits said, if a healed Vogie means 6 innings and 3 runs a start, then yes. And yes, I have gone to each question and answered. So he actually went through and answered all of our questions.
Had a lot of great ones, but
well, he had over a 7 ERA before he went on the DL. So a lot of people were really down on him, but I think he's proven himself. He's had late year issues with the Giants in 2010 and 2011, and he's proven the fact that he can pitch the big time games. So if he does come back in August and the Giants are within striking distance, I think that's going to be a huge pick-me-up, and there's no doubt in my mind that Vogie is going to contribute to a potential run.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know that we see him, being the ridiculously unexpected Ryan Vogelsong coming right off of an injury. But then again, he's surprised us before, and either way, I think he can definitely be serviceable because that's something that we've been searching for. So,
yeah, we're talking about like Kickham and guys like that who,
say we file this under, probably won't hurt, could help.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm certainly not complaining with getting Vogelsong back into the rotation. So we also asked, what's your biggest first half disappointment? And we talked about what we see as being that, but we got from at Michael and Callie, not being in first place and the Dodgers being ahead of us. I cannot argue with that.
No, especially since like 4 weeks ago, it was the exact opposite.
Yes, well, which is extremely depressing because the Dodgers, who are the basement dwellers, are just racing up on Puigmania and are now actually at a 500 record.
Yep.
So that's something that we haven't tasted in a while.
Damn it.
Hopefully again soon. Eddie Regassa, who's at Medic2442, actually said the biggest disappointment for me is how the starting rotation sucks except for Mad Bum. And it's worth pointing out that out of the 9 wins that the Giants had last month, 4 of them were Mad Bum.
Yep.
That's huge.
And every single win broke a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, Mad Bum. We've noticed though the last few years it's a different guy as the stopper every time. Vogelsong's been the stopper. At one point Zito was the stopper, which was weird. Kane's been the stopper. Lincecum spent a long time as the stopper.
Yep.
And now it's Bumgarner. And this is the reason that we always look at our rotation and say these are the guys that are really keeping us in games because we've seen a couple of teams go on these 10-game losing streaks, and we've seen a couple of teams go on these 11-game winning streaks against other teams. And our longest streaks haven't quite gotten up to that level of epic because we've got a pitching staff that can get us back into games, but it's a different guy every time. This isn't the pitching staff that's going to get us back into games on a regular basis, but it does have Madison Bumgarner this year. And in previous years, it's been different guys who will come in and say, you know what, we're done. It's going to be a win today because I'm sick of this.
Yeah.
And, but the rest of the rotation has sucked. Good point, Eddie. And I think that has been a huge disappointment for a team that's so used to a solid starting rotation.
Well, especially since most of our salary is in the pitching. So
yeah, there is that.
It's frustrating. All right. So another question we asked is, what do you think will be the key to turning it around in the second half? Your answers will probably be on tonight. So yes, they will. All right. So at
your reward
Michael,
for being engaged in it.
Your
all right.
reward.
Let's just give them the answers.
Pavlovian responses. No, at Michael and Callie. Season isn't over. We are still in it. They need to play each game mistake-free, get on base, and have quality pitching starts.
So basically,
there's no
everything that they're not doing right now.
Yeah. He pretty much encapsulated the whole season here in one tweet. But the reality is, even with decent pitching and okay hitting, okay, fine, that's what have you. But they just are not having the quality starts that we expected. They are not having the clean defense that we expected.
Although it has
the
improved
offense
a lot
is
since
not
the beginning
anything
of the year,
we've ever expected, but all those added together is summation to the record we have.
It's all happening at once.
Yeah.
Eric made a good point, though. He said getting on base at the top of the lineup, as bad as the pitching has seemed, scoring runs has been the biggest issue lately, and that's true. The offense has been pretty poor, and we've tried putting a couple of the different spots into the leadoff area. Gregor Blanco is the one that we tend to keep coming back to, and when he's on, that can be really handy, but he hasn't been on lately, and we've just been searching for guys to get on base because it's bad enough that we aren't hitting when guys get on base, but we aren't getting guys on base either, and it's this strange black hole of offensive suck. And so,
offensive suck. I'm offended by that, Ben.
That's a medical term. Kathy G on our Facebook listeners pointed out that if Pence gets hot, he could make a huge impact. And also excited to see what Tanaka will do. Interesting to hear all the bandwagon jumpers of the past 2 years. They just don't get it. If you were around for 2008, this still probably seems like kind of not a terrible stretch, and at the same time, it's really bleak because we've been around for 2010 and 2012. I mean, this team is certainly not as bad as the 2008 Giants, and at the same time, they're starting to look like it. Hopefully, we see a turnaround this month, but it's true. Pence was really hot at the beginning of the year, and it's if this is a slump and he's getting back to himself. Which we're, I think, just starting to see, hopefully, the beginnings of. That's going to be huge. You pair Pence with Posey as two guys, if Pence gets into one of his longer stretches of consistency, that's going to be huge, having those guys go either back-to-back or close to each other. I don't know that I see Kensuke Tanaka sticking around long-term, but at the same time, like, the guy came in and he definitely had an impact the first few games that he played. It's certainly worth at least running out the string and seeing what we've got there. Certainly, if nothing else, then to buy time for other guys farther down in the org, whoever those are, Joe Panic maybe, to keep working, and getting closer
Brett
to the
Pill or Savior.
I mean, Tanaka in left field at this point. I don't. Gary Brown's having. It's one of those things where if your best option at this point is Kensuke Tanaka, then you run with it. And you run the string out on that, see what you can get out of it. Guy's likable, he's playing certainly well enough. He made an impact. He's one of those guys. He came in and everybody went, "Oh, this guy! I remember hearing about him in spring training, and look at it now." You run with that. You play the hot hand, as Bochy says, as long as you got it. So
why not?
Yeah, really though. And thanks to Michael and Callie.
Yes, great.
Follow my
tweets.
friends at TortureCast, the best podcast ever. We will happily take that. If Willie was here, he would say that you are absolutely right. So, but he's unfortunately busy tonight. But you know what? Just imagine that he's saying wonderful things about you right now, because he would definitely agree. And thank you for that.
Definitely raising a glass of whiskey to you at this point.
Possibly several.
Yeah,
maybe
several.
all at once. All right. New favorite guy. Go ahead and hit me, Chad. Who are you loving on this week? That doesn't sound right. But who are you loving on this week?
Wow. I'm loving on a lot of stuff. But as far as the Giants are concerned, anyone who can give the Giants the boost that they need.
So
I'm rooting for anything from the Cosmos.
Okay.
Anything that any of the Giants players have read lately that are going to motivate them.
Sure.
Any
possibly
horrible
paleo
things
diet
that might strike their opponents down,
but in a fashion in which we are not completely upset about.
Exactly. Nothing that's going to take out a life, No. But just anything that's going to help the Giants'
Anything
bottom
that slows them down. Sure.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're saying that as far as wins above replacement concerned, you are, for this week at least, you are a war whore.
War whore, definitely, and not a person who wants to elicit ill will on anyone else or their families.
No.
But
a war whore.
But a war whore.
You'll take whatever you can get.
I'll do it.
Okay. I got to go with the obvious favorite guy because I'm still so excited about it. Tim Lincecum, obviously. Do I really need to say more than that besides 13 strikeouts and 0 hits? New favorite guy, Tim Lincecum. Not a lot else has happened this week, and that is absolutely a huge, huge, huge thing to recognize. And also the All-Star game sucked. So, easily, by miles and miles and miles, Tim Lincecum, new favorite guy.
I feel like Tim Lincecum throwing a no-hitter is like my grandpa bowling a perfect game. But, I didn't expect it, but it's not totally surprising.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, in this context, in this year. It
totally
is.
offensive.
Anyway, since I always pick an honorable mention for new favorite guy, I got to go with Yoenis Cespedes. That was an absolute show of bombs that he put on.
Ba-boom.
And I am really excited to see him come back for the Home Run Derby and possibly even the All-Star game next year, because he absolutely deserved to be there. And I think I would be surprised not to see him come back at least to the Home Run Derby. I think that if Joe Mauer captains the home run team, because it will be in Minnesota next year, Joe Mauer needs to give Yoenis Cespedes a call right now. Now, let's hate on some guys, because I think there are certainly some things to hate on. You got anything that you hate in particular?
Oh, boy. So, how did Tim McCarver ever become a Giants broadcaster? I know it was brief, but...
I try not to think about that.
Last night I did not turn on ESPN or KMBR or any other audio source. I watched the All-Star game from start to finish.
With Buck and McCarver?
Any interruption. And Joe Buck, who I normally hate, I just kind of tolerated him. But then Tim McCarver, after Mariano Rivera came in the 8th inning, which, by the way, I don't know why Leland didn't take him in the 9th, but that's another story.
We've been over that.
Yeah, we've been over that.
But
as for McCarver, I hit 368 in my All-Star game. Okay, fine, you're a good player.
Fair.
He recited the lyrics to Enter Sandman. And it's just a thing of beauty. Can we put it in here in the middle? I don't know if you can edit that or if Willie can edit that, but that is just a fantastic source of American poetry rebroadcast by Fox. Amazing stuff. So, Tim McCarver, I love you, and you absolutely should be there over anyone else broadcasting baseball, even over a garden snail, because you're better than that.
That was the most, I don't know that we've hated on a guy in such a nice way this entire... I'm going to take that.
I tried. I really tried.
You're just too nice to hate on guys, Chad.
I know.
I'm going to go ahead and hate on Jim Leland just because, one, he's an easy target because of last year, but mostly two, it was really weird the way that... well, I don't like that either, but it was really weird the way that Mo didn't go in the 9th inning if we knew we were going to make such a big gesture of it. If you're going to act like it matters and you have a justifiable reason not to make Mariano Rivera your closer, it just... I can't get behind that, but it's strictly because the All-Star game is really, when you get down to it, a form of entertainment. Yeah, it matters for something, but when you've got that many weapons in your bullpen and one of them is Mariano Rivera and you have a 9th inning, when you know that he's doing his goodbye farewell tour, you kind of need to have Mo close the game, and it was just a weird thing overall.
Yeah.
MVP
however, for the hold.
Right.
Woo-hoo.
Hey, you know what? It was the most valuable hold ever.
MVH.
So, for my honorable mention, though, as far as hating on guys, I'm going to hate on the strange, bizarro doppelganger that is 2013 Road Zito. Only because home Zito is throwing 4-1. He's 4-1 with a 2.45 ERA, and opponents are getting on base at a .319 clip. So his on base percentage is .319 against. Now, as soon as you shift to his away splits, he's 0-6. His ERA is 9.89.
Oh yeah,
which is disgusting and terrifying. And his on base percentage against is .472.
So almost 1 out of 2 batters
is getting on base. It's a dangerous clip.
That's bad.
Road Zito is bad. So I am not hating on Barry Zito, and I will probably after 2012 I will never hate on Barry Zito.
You're just hating.
But I am hating on Mysterious Road Barry Zito, because it just doesn't seem like it's the same guy. So I don't feel so bad about hating on him. Because obviously when he's at home, clearly he's trading places with, I don't know, he's mysteriously trading places with Ozzy Canseco again. All right, so you know what? Mathematically, we're not out of it, and until mathematically we're out of it, we are always going to have this segment. So, Chad, tell me why we are going to win it all.
So, ESPN tweeted out earlier tonight, and they said the Giants were 6.5 games out during both of their World Series runs. Okay, right. That's true. However, in 2010, they were 6.5 back. What's ironic is that it was much later than now. A lot of people are signing them off saying 6.5 back at the All-Star break. They're done. They were 6.5 back in 2010 on August 25th. That is more than 5 weeks from now.
Now, it is fair to say that we didn't have quite as many teams ahead of us at the time.
Okay.
But
so
I agree. Of
course, Ben's trying to drag me down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying to make a point. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just here to get in your way, man. That's what I do.
Of course, the Padres lost 10 in a row. That kind of sort of maybe helped a little bit. That was a whole...
Yeah, but you know, there's always something like that, and it's
point being
not impossible.
Is that's like 5 weeks from now, and they were 6.5 then. So that's like if they treaded water for the next 5 weeks, it's still mathematically possible in terms of history. They did it last year. They were 6.5 down. However, they were 6.5 down a little bit earlier in the year. As of this time last year, the Giants were actually 3 games up on the Dodgers, which is a swing of 9.5 games from where they are now. Point being, it is not over. They have the Diamondbacks, who lead the West, coming up next. If they can win 2 out of 3, or God forbid, sweep them, they will be right back in it. If the Giants are swept by the Diamondbacks and they fall to 9.5 back, they're sellers. They're done. They need to get out.
Things are certainly going to look pretty bleak at that point. But you know what?
It's really weird, like, to try and summarize the whole season down to a 1-3 game series, but
and I mean, realistically,
I'm pretty serious. I mean,
but it is going to be a huge deal because it's so close to the trade deadline.
If they're swept by the Diamondbacks, they will be 9.5 back within a week or two of the trading deadline.
And
they have to be sellers at that point.
I mean, I don't see the Giants, like, the Giants have never really been, like, blow the team up sellers, but certainly the idea of trading a guy for prospects or for a quote-unquote missing piece becomes way more attractive when you're 9.5 games back with a week until the trade deadline. For sure. So and I see here you wrote that Vegas currently has the Giants at 33-1.
Yeah, which is really interesting because the Rockies are 50-1, yet the Rockies are further ahead. Yeah, so there's definitely other dynamics going on in their calculations, not just games back, because the Rockies are closer, but yet they have a worse odds. So what I'm saying is, go to Vegas, bet on the Rockies.
Absolutely.
I'm just kidding.
No. Bet a tiny amount of money on the Rockies and get,
bet $1.
Bet $5 and get like 250 back if they win. Yeah, I mean, mathematically it's not impossible. So we're going to hang our hats on the fact that on August 25th we were 6.5 games back, and then we won the World Series. And based on that, it is not at all out of the question that we just might win it all. And that's why. All right, I think that we've certainly talked enough here, and we are definitely looking forward to see what happens after the All-Star break. Tim Lincecum coming off of his no-hitter, starting to see some signs of life in that Giants lineup as well, and of course Madison Bumgarner being Madison Bumgarner, snot rockets everywhere, and also strikeouts. It's going to be it's going to be an interesting rest of the month. We hope you guys stick with us on TortureCast while we follow through it, and we are more than excited to see what happens this week and get right back to you, and hopefully we're just as excited next time we record. Until next time, you can catch us here at TortureCast. You can catch Chad at ChadK21. You can catch me at Fried Duck, and you can catch our missing Willie at Willie Dills. Don't ever talk about our missing Willie again. Beyond that, you can catch us on Facebook. You can catch us on iTunes. Subscribe. Leave us a 5-star rating. Come to our
miss
website.
my Willie.
Leave some. I hate you. Leave some comments on the blog. Get in touch with us. We're more than happy to get your tweets on the air here because we always love to hear what you have to say, and we always think that you guys have interesting ideas to bring up. You're also wonderful and fragrant and adorable and brilliant, and we would absolutely love to have your feedback on our show. Until next time, though, we're going to go quiet for a bit while we watch more Giants baseball in the exciting aftermath of a Tim Lincecum no-hitter and a really boring all-star game. So it can only go up from here. Until then, you guys take care. We'll see you next time.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.